Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Protech BR-1.3 Cali Legal Magic. Very interesting knife, and in some ways a sequel to a knife I've already reviewed. But first, in the name of full disclosure, I want to thank Protech Knives for actually sending this guy along. They provided this guy as a free review sample, partly because, well, I've reached out to they know that I like the Magic, the original version of this knife. They also know that I moved to California, where the original Magic is no longer legal. And so they sent this guy along, because I was at their booth at USM, like, holy crap, Cali Legal Magic. So anyways, they sent one along for me to take a look at. So thank you for that, Protech. They do know, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be junk. But they still chose to send along. We have to assume this is the best quality controlled one of these guys ever. And by the way, the Batman, I think they just decided they were going to throw it on the laser or something like that. Either way, I don't think that's a factory thing. But we have to assume this is the best quality controlled one of these guys ever. And I'm doing my best not to let this affect the substance of my review. Speaking of my review, actually, let's do a size comparison real quick. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. And so you can see here that although it sits a little bit funny due to the location of the handle, you can see here that this guy is a little bit smaller than the Delica. Here it is against the Spyderco PM2, which, again, handle-wise, actually, we're in delicate territory, but blade-wise, we're much shorter. And then here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1. As you can see, again, handle-wise, actually very similar, but blade length is much smaller. Then, actually, I will compare it to one other Cali Legal Protech automatic knife. That is this guy. This is the Protech Sprint. This is an Ultimate Custom Edition, which is... Yeah, I like this knife. But nevertheless, what we can see here is that the blade lengths are actually very similar, although the blades themselves are a little bit different. But yeah, size-wise, the handle is much larger on the Magic 1.3 here. So yeah, then anyways, there is your size comparison here. These guys are both relatively small blades, but the Magic is a substantially larger handle. And then finally, just a quick note. I'm not going to go ahead and do the re-review the entire thing. I'm going to talk about some of the joys, but basically, my goal here is to talk about what's different about the Cali version. Because in a lot of ways, this is exactly the same as the Protech Magic in its handle, it just they've put in a different blade. This is very similar to the approach they took with the Protech Half-Breed, which was a Protech Sprint blade. This is the Protech Sprint, by the way, but this is a Protech Sprint blade in the Half-Breed with a full-size handle from the Newport. They've done a very similar sort of approach here. And so you get this stubby little automatic sort of affair. But anyways, I'm not going to recapitulate the entire review of the Protech Magic. Go ahead and watch that. It's a good review. Well, at least if any of my reviews are good, that one's fine. But I'm going to instead focus on what's different in this little guy and give a quick little overview. So on the good side, to start with, this is a version that is, well, targeted to the Californians. For better or for worse, I think generally for worse, California has a relatively stupid law that says an automatic knife is completely illegal to carry outside of your house if you are under, or if the blade length is over 2 inches. And this guy is uncontroversially under 2 inches. There is no way that anyone's going to say there's anything less than 2 inches. So that's I'm saying anything more than 2 inches. So this is a knife that is custom designed to fit one stupid law. Given that Protech themselves are in California, they are like a couple hours north of me up in there in the LA area, it makes sense that they would do something like this, but that is sort of the main goal for this. It's to create a version of one of their very best knives, in my estimation, and in fact, probably my favorite automatic knife ever. Well, actually, no, that's not true. This guy wins now. But one of my very favorite automatic knives ever. Recreate that for the Cali market. However, this also could, in theory, be useful. There are some people for whom they really like, for whatever task they're after, having a relatively small blade on a relatively big handle. For instance, in whittling or something like that, it's not an uncommon thing. And so I can see somebody thinking about this as being like, oh, actually, I like the idea of having a small blade, big handle, with reasonable ergonomics. That's a nice thing. By the way, the ergonomics remain pretty good on this guy. You do definitely feel the clip a little bit, but at the same time, the ergos work well. It's good in the hand. And I think that works well. One thing that they have done is they've, again, disregarding the little bit of liberty they took, I suppose, what we can see here is there is not a whole bunch of billboarding on this guy. There is this little guy right here, or FPR number 17, whatever that means. But they haven't done all the billboarding on the back, whiskers, magic, etc. I appreciate that they've kind of cut that down a little bit on this model here. But then, most importantly to me, is that this still has the awesome magic mechanism. Some of you might be wondering, Nick, how the heck are you opening this guy? Well, actually, in practice, what happens is you take this little textured pad here, and you move it this direction. and that allows the blade to deploy. In fact, the way that this works, I'm going to go ahead and do this with the blade fully out. This is just attached directly to this backlock bar, and this is exactly a backlock. When I push this little scale out, you can see that it lifts the backlock up off of the blade. And that allows it to unlock. And in that case, because it's unlocking, it's going to go ahead and spring out in a serious business sort of way. And that's a beautiful thing. But it is basically a backlock. But it's just done in a way where the release is very much hidden. And because it's an automatic, the spring will, anytime that you unlock the backlock, it will just go on ahead and deploy. And so this is actually a really cool mechanism. It's something that feels very fancy. Like, oh, you press the secret button, the bolster to deploy it. And then same thing to close it again. But in practice, it's actually very, very easy to use, and it's very, very skillfully sort of designed. It's complexity that comes from simplicity, and that's not a common thing to see, or seeming complexity, that is. The other thing to note is that because this is an out-the-side automatic, these are very easy to open silently. So for instance, if you're in the lunchroom at work, all you need to do to open it silently is to kind of have your finger here and then just pop it open, and then people are like, oh, cool, slip joint, and then oh yeah, sure. Absolutely, but only they know that, or only you know that it can also be, full-on auto. So it has that awesome mechanism on here that makes this guy, well, frankly, magical. And so I like very much the fact that it retains that mechanism. And I think this is a good approach. So to me, at least, all that is the good, is that it still has the awesome magic mechanism. It has good ergos. It has less billboarding than the original, and it is a California legal version of a knife that I think a lot of people might find really cool. I like this mechanism just a whole bunch. And so that's absolutely great. On the bad side, it is $209, which is the same price as the full size. The full size price has gone up a little bit since I filmed that review. And by the way, I'm not doing a disassembly of this guy because substantially it's the same idea. So you go ahead and check the disassembly on the original Magic for that. But anyways, it's the same price as the full-size guy. This makes sense, right? At some level, the only thing that's different here is that they've cut off some of the blade here. And that's not enough, it's not a huge cost savings, and they got to make these limited. Anyways, the price is a little high, though. I'd like to see the prices come down, but it's made in the States. Okay, I guess, whatever. Next thing, the blade steel on this guy is 154 cm. Not CPM 154, but 154 cm. Now, 154 cm is one of those steels that is absolutely fine. It's good to go. It works. It'll be good for everyday carry. It's good. It's okay. But it's not, an amazing steel. And this is starting to get toward the price point at $200, where I'm going to start wanting to see a little bit better. Maybe creeping up towards S35 or something like that. 154 cm is a great steel, but it's also a great steel of yesteryear. And so I'd like to see Protech more aggressively moving up the steel chain. At some level, is that crucial? No, and good heat treat on this will make that okay, but at the same time, I don't know. They're starting to be left behind by the competition. Next thing, this has a relatively thick grind. If I go ahead and put this guy next to my finger, you can see here the tip is a little beefy. And similarly, if I can zoom in on the sharpening choil here, yeah, again, that's a relatively thick grind on this guy. It's not going to be God's gift to cut to really fine slicing tasks. And if you're looking to do like whittling and such, you may end up reprofiling the edge a little bit. And so I'd kind of like to have seen a thinner grind on this guy. This is something that, I like Protech a lot. I think they make probably the best automatic knives out there these days, certainly out the side. But they are absolutely a little bit behind the times in terms of grind thickness. I'd like to see them go thinner behind the edge. And then, of course, it does still have a couple of the downsides of the original Magic, namely that it is still chalky black aluminum. It is still possible to pinch yourself, because you can see here this little gap opens and then closes. So if you've got your thumb pressed down on here, it's very easy to pinch your thumb in there. It's not going to, take you out or anything, but it's a thing. Keep in mind. And it is still maybe a little less ideal on the oil fields because it's a relatively slippery knife. This does require a little bit of traction from your skin to pop open. And if your hands are wet, you can slide off of there very easily. And given that you're trying to compress a spring under tension, sliding off of there can be a little complicated, right? So, to me, at least, all that's the bad is that it's still, it's got some of the downsides of the original. It is a relatively thick grind. The blade steel remains not super amazing here, although it is good to go. And $209, it's a lot of money, but again, made in the States, unique, California. Everything's expensive in California. Oh, God, don't get me started. So anyways, to me, at least, that's what's bad. On the final conclusion front here, this is a very neat knife. I like the Protech Magic a lot. It is a seriously wonderful knife. And in fact, the only reason I don't own one of those guys is that I live in California now, and so I couldn't. Now, Well, now I do. And now this gives me a Protech Magic that I can carry here in my state, despite the relatively stupid laws that they've passed regarding automatic knives. And so they've taken a very neat knife and they've made it Cali legal just by swapping in a shorter blade. In practice, though, if you're sitting there looking at it like, oh, Nick, interesting. I could do the Protech BR1 or I could do the Protech BR-1.3. Both are legal to carry. Do the full size. In practice, unless you're really looking for that feeling of small blade, big handle, for some very specific cutting task that you might have, honestly, this is going to be, I feel like you're going to be better served by going for the full-size variant there. This probably isn't going to be your best choice. And you can have the full size is a knife that is both functional and, well, this is functional too, but it's not designed to deal with a very specific legislative problem. So if you don't have a specific need for the short blade, then I would recommend you go with the full-size version. But that said, I am very, very glad that Protech is offering one of my very favorite of their knives in a Cali legal variant, because they're just up the road here too. They're dealing with these lot too. And, honestly, the Magic is a design that is, well, more than a little bit magical, and I'm really glad to see that more people here in the California get to be wizards. So anyways, there you go. Thank you very much, Protech, for letting me check this little guy out, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and, California, work on your laws, damn it. Support knife rights. Anyways, I digress. Hope this has been interesting. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.